I know I'm super late, but I finally finished watching Supercell, and I'm just going to give some thoughts on it. I'm not going to give a full breakdown, but it's going to be my thoughts on watching it. First thing I want to say is really well done. Really good show. I really enjoyed it. So well done to Ratman. I think Ratman is a good writer, is a really good writer. And I say that because I'm not super into the gang thing. I do like a little bit of gang shows, a little bit, but not really. I'm not a Top Boy guy. I'm not really a hugely into those things. As you can see, I run a nerd page. You get me? Like, that's not really my cup of tea. That being said, I thought Blue Story was really good, really good. And it's not really my cup of tea, but it was really good movie. I thought Supercell was really good as well. I thought Supercell was really good. I had one major criticism, but I'm going to leave it to the end because it's a general criticism about storytelling in general. It's not necessarily about Supercell, but it happened in Supercell, so I'm going to have to address it. Boom. But all the things I liked the length of it. It was good. 6 episodes, perfect length. The pacing was amazing throughout the episodes. I felt that I was engaged the entire time. There wasn't a lull in the series. And I really appreciated that. I got to the end and I was like, oh, wow, we're at the end. This is the finale. How exciting. It wasn't like, oh, goodness, like okay, that episode could have got missed or could have shortened that scene. Like everything was well put together and, and engaging. So I appreciated that. I thought the characters were really good. And I especially want to shout out some of the acting. I thought the acting was really good. I thought all the main characters were played really well. What I liked about a lot of the characters is the way that they balanced off of each other. If you look at like Charlene and Sabrina, for example, their characters balanced each other really well, and and it was well portrayed through the acting. If you look at, for example, the Crazy and Masha sort of partnership, that general and lieutenant partnership, I thought that was really good. And I kind of hope, I mean, obviously Crazy's dead, right? But whenever they kill a character off screen, the likeliness is, I'll say no more because it's not really a spoiler, but the reality is you give yourself the option to bring them back, right? When you kill them off screen, just saying. So you look at Crazy and you look at Masha and you look at their partnership, that general lieutenant partnership. Me personally, like as a man who likes to write, because I like to write as well, I'm thinking, wow, I would put them in a different type of storyline and see how they merge to get some Vex together. Like I'll put them in a Star Trek with one being the general, one being the lieutenant of some evil alien army or something. Do you know what I mean? Like just the way that they went together, I feel like in a different context would work really well. Not just them. The guy that tried to get my man's son into the gang, he played his character really well. I feel like he was one of the most believable characters as well, you know, when it comes to his character. I don't know what it was about his persona, his portrayal, but it was incredibly believable. So shout out to my man that played. I can't remember his name, but he had the plats and that. Shout out to Getz as well, and shout out to the producers and so on and so forth. Because you take a character and you call him Crazy, right? And you expect somebody to be all but he was crazy through intensity, and that's what I loved about Crazy's character. He was so intense, and that is what made him believable as somebody called Crazy. And I thought that was such a good direction to go storytelling wise, especially where, again, there's so many characters that were jumpy. What? Everything is a little bit over the top. What? Man should have stabbed him in his neck, blood. You got what I'm saying? Which I enjoyed, don't get me wrong, but everybody's, what? Mash him up, blood. And Crazy walks on the screen and he's different to everyone else. And that's what makes him seem like, okay, he's the guy. So just well done to Getz in that performance, because he steps on the screen and he can say 3 words and already you believe that this is the guy, bro. Like, he's the guy. So shout out to him for that. There's other partnerships that balanced really well. I thought Taser and his boys, they were really well put together. You had the funny one. You had the one that seemed like he was a bit more like, I don't know, calmer. And then, you get me, you had the one who was just, what, black. You get me? You had the whole spectrum of gangster, and I thought that was cool. I really enjoyed that. I just thought it was a really well put together show, to be honest. I can't fault it. So those are my favorite things: the pacing and the characters and the acting. I thought the powers were cool. It was a good selection of powers, and I always complain that when you look at Black London shows and movies, a lot of it is gang culture focused. Even the music, everything. Not all of it, but a lot of it. And then you have things that have been put together that I personally haven't enjoyed. that aren't gang culture focused. And then you have things, I'm not going to name any, shout out to those people, but, and then you have things that are put together that are like American. So they have to go across the pond, like Bashi with that horror thing he did. I can't remember what it's called, but there's not enough creativity. And although this was heavily gang culture focused in a lot of ways, yeah, there was the superhero aspect, there was the sickle cell aspect, there was a lot going on drama wise. That's kind of what I liked about Blue Story, actually. There's a lot going on drama wise that sort of allowed it to be a little bit different. And I feel like we have to allow our creators to be a little bit different, step outside of that box and give us something different from where we come from. Because a lot of people, like from where we come from, appreciate it because it's home, innit? And even like that first scene where the guys go into the party and it's like, what are the ops here? Da, 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 da. I remember being at house parties, brother, and a local gang would turn up and the energy just shifts completely and they've just come to ruin everybody's night, basically, even though they come and just music gal and chilled out. But I mean, in the show, but I don't know if you go up in the ends and you're a civilian and you was in that kind of space. You know what it's like when you're at a party, your vibes in, you get me, a dance with gal, and then the gang turn up and it's 12 man and you get me, then and suddenly your time is not the same as it was before. You're thinking about leaving out the back door kind of thing. Because things are different. You see a man that you know, you're like, oh, you're over the top, oh, go on, blood, to make sure everything's like, yeah, everybody look, I know this one. You get me, just to make sure everything's corpus mentis and everything's gonna be all right when the shit goes left. Anyway, I've come off topic a little bit there, but what I'm saying is where you come from the environment, you can appreciate it. But I just feel like we need to take that and put it into a little bit more creativity, a little bit more different spaces, which to a lot of degrees Supercell has done. So well done to Supercell for all of that. Now, I said I wasn't going to speak too much, but I've got a habit of talking too much still. That's just my personality. My only criticism is the main character, who I thought was sick, right? The one with all the powers, the time traveler. Time travel is such a cop-out, right? And time travel can be done well, but it's difficult to get well for me. Now, because the show is enjoyable, I don't think it matters that much. However, if you're going to have time travel, you have to have really established rules and they have to kind of make sense. And I'm going to try and not get too nerdy here because I don't think Supercell fans are necessarily nerd fans. I think it's just a crossover of genres. But like, he's gone into the future and he's met future him, right? Which means one of two things. The timeline has split, or there's one singular timeline and he's met himself in the future, right? But where it doesn't make sense is he's come back and then the whole storyline has played out. And then at the end they said, oh, we know you can't bring people back. But he did bring somebody back because she's dead when he goes into the future. And then he's come back and she's alive, right? And then she dies again. So what's stopping him from going back and is it because it's not his partner, it's somebody? So then you're talking about different timelines. But like, it gets a little bit complicated because you did bring her back. So then if he goes back till 5 minutes after, is he going to meet another him? Or does he have to go back to the exact time where he would have been for it to be exactly him? Like, where do you go and meet another you? And where do you go and not meet another you and it be you? Do you know what I mean? Like, where does that where's the sense in that? I think it gets a little bit too complicated. Obviously, if you overthink it, which is what I do, which is why I have a bloody review channel. But I think it's really, and then also it kind of ruins a bit of the suspense sometimes because when Crazy kills them all, which was a sick scene, by the way, when he gets the speedy power and he's like, bah, 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 shaking everyone up, you know that he's going to go back in time. So it's like, as soon as he started killing them, I said, yeah, but this is the problem with time travel. I know what's going to happen now. He's going to go back in time. And we knew my girl was going to die anyway because they set the scene up. She was clearly going to die, right? Go home. No, go home. No. All right, she's dead. You know that from there. And then Boba Barnes kills all of them. Well, okay, my man's going to go back in time because he's not going to kill all the main characters. This ain't Game of Thrones. And even if it was Game of Thrones, you're still going to kill one at a time, right? I'm going to kill all the main characters. It's not going to make sense. Unless it's a limited series, which is not, or a movie, which is not. And even then, the problem is, it's too... There has to be really established set of rules. If you take something like Endgame, they had a whole scene where the characters were debating. What about this? Oh no, but time travel doesn't work like that. What about this? Oh no, time travel works like this, because they have to give you all this explanation for it to make any sense. And for the fans to not be able to do what I just did and be like, well, what if this happens? And then that doesn't make sense. And that doesn't make sense. And I know that when you're watching a show that's a fantasy, a fiction, there has to be some level of suspended disbelief. But for suspended disbelief to work, you have to follow rules. You have to follow rules. If I set a show that says Superman is what's it called? His weakness is kryptonite, and then he has an episode where he eats kryptonite for breakfast because suddenly he's Superman and the kryptonite doesn't affect him anymore. You've messed up your own rules. Now you can say, "Oh, but he's Superman, so that's why he survived." And it's like, yeah, but you set those rules, and that's the problem with time travel. And that's the problem with time travel. However, outside of that, it was a really good show. I really appreciated it. Shout out to Ratman. Shout out to the cast for the brilliant acting. Can't wait for season 2. Time travel is a bit of a pet peeve of mine because I enjoy it if it's done well, but it's always a little bit gets silly. It just gets silly, bro. Unless you have really established rules, which they didn't. But shout out to everyone. I haven't spoken about Rodney. He played his character exceptionally well. He's another character that not only was he acted really well, he bounced off his partner in the show. Like, is him his friend? But I say partner because they all kind of partnered up, aren't they? They balance off each other very well in their energies and their interests. And yeah, just a very well put together show. Bravo. Please, in season 2, give us a little bit more explanation on the time travel. Other than that, I cannot wait to see season 2. Shout out to Batman. Shout out to Getz. Shout out to Vex. Shout out to the whole cast. Shout out to Ratman. Peace.